Good morning, Year 10, and good morning, Alex.
Hello.
Today I want to talk for a little while about legal issues in the workplace. Today specifically about two issues, dismissal and redundancy, which are interrelated. All right, let's go. Before we go any further, I'll acknowledge my source, which is Stephen Chapman's New Concept in Commerce. If you don't want to listen to any more of this, go and read it instead. All right, so as was the case last week, we know there are a number of legal issues that need to be employers and employees need to be aware of. We've already considered workplace health and safety, bullying and harassment. Today we're going to consider unfair dismissal and redundancy. All right, dismissal and unfair dismissal. All right, if an employee is not performing their job satisfactorily or behaves in an inappropriate manner, the employer can terminate their employment. Alex, what does it mean to terminate something?
Destroy.
Destroy, to end. So this is called dismissal. Remember that. Write it down. So there are three main ways in which an employee may be dismissed. First one is called summary dismissal, which is another thing you should probably write down. So this can occur when there is a serious breach of an employment contract by the employee, such as theft or assault. Alex, I'm a school teacher. What would be something that I could do which would lead to me being summarily dismissed?
No idea whatsoever.
Like, for example, if I got the meter ruler and I hit one of my students across the head with it, I'd probably be summarily dismissed. All right, dismissal by notice is based on failure to perform the job adequately. So if you're just not very good, you might get sacked. And redundancy or retrenchment, they mean something subtly different, but let's not worry about that this year. Due to the employer no longer requiring the employee, because their labour is just not necessary. All right, so for example, if this video is truly embarrassing, I might lose my job because of it. All right, dismissal and unfair dismissal. Oh, okay, unfair dismissal. Apologies. Okay, so unfair dismissal occurs when an employee is sacked and they believe the dismissal is harsh, unjust, or unreasonable. So dismissal is losing your job. Unfair dismissal is when you believe and it is affirmed as being unfair. So employees' rights have been protected by what is called the Fair Work Act, which I think we've already discussed earlier this year. So the idea is that this law is in place so employees can access legal assistance fairly cheaply and in a fair way to appeal the decision. Does that sound like a good idea?
Yep.
Yep. All right. So that's dismissal. Redundancy. Redundancy occurs when a job is no longer required to be performed. This may be due to new technology or the use of outsourcing. Where's that phone? So my awesome Samsung flip phone is now redundant because someone decided to turn off the 2G network, which was a travesty of justice. Therefore, unless the existing employee can be retrained for another job, and sadly I cannot retrain my Samsung phone, they will be made redundant. Voluntary redundancy occurs when a business decides how many employees should be let go. So say, for example, you've got 100 employees and you do not need, say, 10%, so 10 of them to continue in their work. You would give them the opportunity to nominate themselves to accept the redundancy. The idea being that their redundancy package would be more generous than if it was involuntary redundancy. So basically they're sacrificing themselves for the sake of others. So if too few employees volunteer, which no doubt happens if a business is forced to decide which employees will be made redundant. Presumably they take into account things like performance, age, skills, and this is called involuntary redundancy. So it's important you understand the difference between voluntary and involuntary. And an involuntary redundancy package is not as good for the employee as a voluntary redundancy package. So, redundancy. Do you understand the term? You may be familiar with the term 21st century learning. I put it to you, is that term now redundant? Thank you for your time. Thank you for your assistance, sort of, Alex.
Thank you.
All right. You may go. As may you. I'll see you in class on Tuesday. Bye.